Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshop, where we get together in the middle of the week and learn more about technology. This is the third Wednesday of the month, and that normally has been set aside for learning about Linux, and today is no exception. We're going to start out today with something for new users and maybe even for some experienced users. One of the things that we Linux users like so much about Linux is how customizable Linux is compared to the limitations you might have in a Windows operating system. There are so many options and so much customization that we can't fit it into one session. So we're going to have part one today with Cal Esneault from the Cajun Clickers. Cal is one of the original of the Linux team from way back when, and we're glad to have him back. And he'll be back in December, scheduled a cataract surgery, so he can't be with us next month like he had hoped. So he'll be with us this week doing customizing the Linux desktop, and then he'll be back in December with some more advanced options for customizing. So I'm going to turn things over to Cal, and let's all learn about what all customizations can start right now.
Let me hide this panel here. Try to get okay. You see the slide, John?
I can see the slide.
Okay. So, as John was saying, one of the things about Linux is that we can customize it, maybe customize it too much for some people, but uh, it varies because we have so many different desktops and so many different distributions and combinations of the two. The specifics on how to do this can vary. And one of the things is we take time to personalize our desktop, and then we decide to change the desktop, or the desktop gets changed without our control. In some cases, like when we upgrade, the distribution these days, we generally keep all of our settings and we just upgrade and we just get a newer version. But in many cases, we can't do that. We have to manually reset it. And that is what I call a fresh install of an operating system. Some reasons might be if you decided to change distributions. If that distribution doesn't have an option to do it automatically for you, you change computer hardware, you get a new computer, etc. And today I'm going to give an example using Linux Mint 22.2 with the Cinnamon desktop. 22.2 is the latest. And from our survey, Linux Mint is the most popular Linux distribution that people in this meeting have. Now, in this group, I've learned that there are all kinds of experience level, from people who have never used Linux to people who used it for 30 or 40 years. And a kind of, you can break it up into, I guess, three different types. One is a newbie. That's a person who's been using Windows. They're very proficient in Windows or Mac, but they're coming to Linux for the first time. There are people that just your normal home user who use Linux on a daily basis, and they need to customize it for ease of use. And then we have highly skilled people who tune it for high efficiency and special needs and special equipment. So today I'm going to do the lower end. And so I know there's many more things to do, but I'm going to do the very first start. If you're a brand new user or if some reason you have to reinstall and you haven't done it in a while. Now, John had gone over some of the more popular distributions and desktops in January, and he laid out the basic components. I'm going to kind of zero in on the Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop, and I'm going to try to touch on some of the things he did, but how to set them up initially. Now, all distributions that I've ever worked with have a default environment, have a setup that they give to you. And then from that, you normally have to customize it, kind of tweak it to fit your needs. And it's kind of here's a pattern that I generally have followed. First, you have to update the software because even though it's a brand new system to you, it may have been around a month or two and changes have been made. Then you have to fit it to any special needs you have as far as hardware and make sure you have good security. And then you get to that point where you tune it for your personal preferences. After that, if this is new, you can add any new software that doesn't come with the distribution by default. And if you have other files that you need to migrate into that system. So that's kind of the basic pattern, but Linux Mint is kind of designed for new users and tries to help us. And they have a welcome screen to help us get some of this initial tasks completed. So here is the desktop. If you've never seen Linux Mint, this is a blank desktop. I loaded one onto a machine, and so this is what you would get if you started up, exactly what you would see. Just as some definitions, we have the background. Here they have the Linux Mint logo. In the bottom left corner, you have the start menu or the application launcher. There are a few default apps that are pinned to the panel at the bottom. It's a one panel, and you can move the panel, but the default is at the bottom. And then the system tray, the various little system control icons are in the bottom right. But when you first turn it on, this is exactly what you're going to see. It's going to be a screen that says welcome. And the way this screen works is there's a column, a panel on the left, and you proceed down the column from welcome, the first steps to documentation. And you advance to each screen. There's a little green button that you press to go to the next screen. At any time, you can exit with the button at the top right. And just to tell you that this thing will show up every time you reboot. So after you've done it a couple times and you want to get it out the way, you don't want to see it anymore, you uncheck this box at the bottom. And that will remove it from coming up every time you start up. As you can see, this is Linux Mint 22.2, which is the latest. So the second screen, which says first screens, is a list of customization items. It's not all of them, but they are the ones they kind of think you should think about. If you look at it, Here are some examples of desktop color system settings. And kind of one of the reasons they do this is because icons are considered art and as such are copyrighted, so that different distributions and different operating systems use different icons. So Mint wants you to know, here are the particular icons that you are using for this machine to get you familiar. And also, they have things like driver manager, update manager. These are what you're going to see in the menu, and they give you a little short description. In truth, these things have different names, but this is just for experts to know. And to help you, although you can find these in other places, they give little launch buttons so that it'll take you directly to these items. But as you might expect, at any time you're in using the system, there are many ways to get to these items. The one I'm going to start off with, the first thing I always start off with is the update manager. So if I launch the update manager, the very first time you launch it, they will give an explanation of what the update manager covers. And of course, it's security updates and bug fixes, which are software updates. And Mint also has a snapshot system that we'll talk about in a second. So then when you say, okay, now I want you to notice at the bottom, there's a dot that will appear by this shield. This shield is the update manager icon. So if you need an update, you will see this colored dot in the bottom. So we proceed on, press OK. And here is the update manager. This is exactly what I saw the first time I had to update it. And you notice that there are little check boxes so that you can not update anything you want. Now, in general, this is a bad idea, but this was set there in the past, and they wanted to give experts a chance. But it is recommended that you upgrade everything. In fact, the default is that they'll all be checked, and you then install the updates with the command at the top. It goes a while, it does everything for you. It takes us whatever, a few minutes, but it does not require a reboot unless you have a new kernel. And when you're done, it will give you your system is update and you can get out of it. And if you notice, then at the bottom, the little shield, the dot will have disappeared. So after you exit the app, sometimes when you're going through this, you would just go back to the main screen. I guess there's a couple things on the screen that I think might be useful for you to know what to start with. First off, you can change the desktop background if you don't like the Linux Mint logo. And second, we can customize, and we'll see what that customize word means. So the background, when you go to the background, it's a pretty standard looking setup. It will give you a bunch of icons to choose from. It would give you some art that they've already prepared, or you can add your own pictures. You just go to pictures and then click on the plus, and it'll go to your pictures folder, and you can add one of those. I've chosen this background called sparkling just to have something in the background. The customize option is very limited. What it does is it just customizes your desktop shortcuts. And this is kind of, I think, important for people that like to have desktop icons. One thing is you can change the size. So the bigger the size, the easier to see. The smaller the size, the more icons you can fit in a given area. Another item is auto arrange. When you put icons, many people like to move them around. Well, when you restart the machine, they will automatically be alphabetized and arranged in a column or a row. And all the time you took to put them in a special little corner will be wiped out. So if you want it to keep the position that you set it in, you go and slide a little slider into off. So put auto arrange off, and then it'll stay wherever you put it. So if we got out of the welcome screen and we want to get back to finish the list of things we had, we go down to the app launcher in the bottom left. And the easiest way is to just start typing the word welcome. The welcome app will show up in the column right there, and you click on it and it'll start right up. So here we are back in the welcome app in the first step screen. And we've done the update manager. So now I'm going to do the rest of them, and I'll do them in this order. I'll do the first three, and then I'll skip around in the bottom. So the first one we want to look at is desktop colors. Now, desktop colors is really what I would call themes, and it's in system settings. And Mint is just reminding you what desktop colors means, where you would find it. Now, Mint uses GNOME tools, and there are many ways to create different colors and icons, and many distributions make you add add-ons to do this easily. The problem is when you update many times, some of these things can break, and some of them are confusing. So Mint has an internal software tool to simplify this and help you, and it makes everything just very simple. So if you press on that, you will get this screen, you'll get this dialog box, and you'll see that it has dark and light themes. You know, dark is a dark background with light text, and light is a light background with dark contrasting text. There's also a mixed theme, which has a combination of both, and I'll demonstrate this in a second. Also, there are the colors, which is called an accent color. An accent color is, if you look at the X here where you close it, it's got a blue in there. Well, you can change that color to something else. And you just do it by clicking whatever color you want. And lots of things will then follow that pattern. There is an advanced settings section. And it takes me about 30 minutes or 40 minutes to explain people the history and the different choices and all kinds of panels. And I always tell people, just don't worry about it until you use Mint a good while. So here is the mixed theme. And if you see, I have selected a dual color, blue and gold. So it is blue up here, and the file manager is gold. Now, if I look at a dark theme, here I see the background is dark and the panel is dark, and I've picked it orange for the highlight color, or some kind of red, whatever that is. And here it's that color, and here over here. Then the light mode, I've picked a light mode, and you can see that the background is light, and now the taskbar is light. And I've picked green, and you can see the green for the folders and green up here. If you go back and look at the mixed mode, you'll see this is light and this is dark. And various programs and features will have these themes kind of blended in with them. This is kind of an answer. Lots of things in GNOME are kind of not blending in. And Windows is sort of like that, but people like Mac and KDE users, they have very good theme matching, and it makes everything kind of flow. Everything looks the same in the background. Another app is called Time Shift. Now, Time Shift is the app which takes a snapshot of your operating system files. Windows people would know this as the restore point. And it has been put in case you have a bad update. There was lots of blowback to Mint when it let everybody uncheck some of the updates. So they said, okay, we'll put in a system so that if you have a problem, it's easy to go back. And therefore, you should do all the updates because you have a fallback position. Note that it does not back up your personal files. It only backs up system files, all your basic operating system and any programs that you add. This symbol is the system's report icon, and it has an exclamation point in the middle. And if you look at the system tray, when you first start your system, it will have that icon. And when you click on that icon, it will go to the system report. The system report will let you know if anything is wrong with your system. In this case, it says you need to set up your system restore utility, Time Shift. And it gives you two choices. Go ahead and do it, or if you don't care about it, ignore this report and we'll never nag you again. So I'm going to choose to launch Time Shift. And the first thing, it's got a wizard. And there are two types of Time Shift snapshots you could take. And the one you should choose is rsync, because that's the Debian-based file system. That's what they use. So pick rsync, and it will proceed, and you go to the next button, and it will then show you where it's going to put this snapshot. Now, I want you to note that this is the partition on which my system exists. So the backup is stored on the thing that it's backing up. It's only there for an upgrade problem. If your drive fails, it will fail. So it is not there as a backup. It is there to help you in case there is an update problem. If I go on, it would tell me how many snapshots it would take, and that there's a schedule, and it has an incremental backup approach. And you can have them daily, weekly, monthly, and you can keep how many versions you want. I don't keep too many. I do one a week and a month. And the reason is that these backups, these snapshots can get large, 4 or 5 gigabytes each, and before you know it. And then when they're backing up, making their restore file, it slows your computer down. So I find this adequate. Which you choose is up to you. The next item on the list is the driver manager. If you click on the driver manager, it will automatically scan your system. And in my case, it said you don't have anything extra. So you don't need any new driver. You don't have any choices. Commonly, people will find if they have an NVIDIA card, and it will give them a choice to use the NVIDIA driver as a default open source driver. But generally, the NVIDIA is being good these days. So normally I would tell people go ahead and switch to the NVIDIA proprietary driver. The next item is the firewall. This is a software firewall. Now, Linux Mint uses the uncomplicated firewall. That's UFW, and the G stands for graphical or GUI interface. And lots of Linux systems use it. And it is disabled by default. And Linux Mint is not the only person. Ubuntu disables it by default. And the reason is that Mint says it's mostly okay to be off for home users. Because when you turn it on, you have to know how to arrange it. To turn it on, I've got it shown being on here. It's another slide button. You slip the slide button on. If you want it off, you slip the slide button the other way. Now, if you enable it, this feature, you might want it for certain things. So I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You have to read the documentation of which ports or IP addresses that you want to allow in or out. As you can see, when you turn it on the first time, it says deny any incoming and allow out any outgoing. So if there's a special thing that incoming that you need, you'll have to allow it with a rule. Now, there are three profiles. If you look at the top, it says profiles, and it has a little drop-down triangle. And they give you a choice. You can set up three independent profiles: home, office, and public. So home, even if you have it, it would be very limited. But if you're in a group or an office and lots of other equipment and lots of other exposure, then this becomes critical. So I'm not telling you not to use a firewall. It's just that if you're home and have a low attack surface and you don't know much about setting up firewalls, you have your connection to the internet. Generally, the modem setup generally gives you most of the protection you need. But if not, then you have all these choices. And you could be okay at home with all it off, then you go to a coffee shop or something, you could turn it on and have the extra protection. Now, system settings, this is where 90% of everything is done. And here's the system settings. It's in a nice little icon grid, and it's grouped by subjects, appearance, preferences, hardware, and administration. This is exactly the same list that you would get if you went to preferences. So routinely or legacy-wise, this is what we used to have, but Linux Mint has tried to make it pretty it up and put it in a little grid and make it look like your smartphone. So the settings are another way to act as a checklist. So I go down each one of these and say, do I need to do anything at this time? Now, I've already covered backgrounds, themes, driver manager, and firewall. See, they can also be accessed through the settings besides just the welcome screen. Welcome screen was just there to make it easy for the first time. This is where you can get to it and reset it at any time you want. Now I'm going to cover, and which additional things you do, of course, is up to you, but I'm going to cover a few that I found to be useful. And so we're going to go down this list. First one is date and time. Here's the date and time, and when it first sets up, you'll get the 24-hour clock. So the first thing most people do is they want to turn the 24-hour clock off. So you slide the little slider to turn the 24-hour clock off. And if you want to see the date, day of the week, you can do that. And here I've set it up and you can see that it's now AM, PM, and I show the date with the day of the week. The next is desktop icons. Now this is a special set of icons, and you turn them on by moving the sliders to the left or right for off and on. They are a special set, different from your personal icons. So if you turn these on, they will always go up to the top left or something of that nature, depending on your setup. And you can turn them off and on. The next is a screensaver. Now, I know we all have LCD screens or whatever. We don't really need a screensaver. But it's a good way to lock your screen, change the time that it locks out. And it's just a little clock that moves around slowly. So it alerts you that you have, in fact, timed out. And if you want to lock it, to keep it away from somebody else using it, you can do that or not. And next is power management. And in power management, one of the key things I see is you can decide if you're on AC power or battery power, when do you want to turn the screen off? Because the screen takes a lot of power. And you can set that. And then what do you want to do? And you want to suspend it after it's been turned off, or you want to shut it down. So you can make these selections. For battery power on a laptop, I put it at a very small, short time. If you're using a desktop, then you might not care, or if you're on plugged in, you may not care. Now, here's something that's always an issue to lots of people, is setting up a printer. Now, Linux uses what's called CUPS, Common Unix Printing System. And there is an elaborate way to do this. Not too hard, but it takes some system. But here lately, the printer manufacturers have kind of seen the light. And if you've got a printer that's been manufactured since probably something like 2018, it will join the new concept called IPP Everywhere and driverless printers. And if you have this situation, everything will just work wonderfully. And Mint has a good approach. And here's the path that I recommend people take. First off, for IPP is the internet, so you have to hook your printer to the network, not with a cable. And you start the PC, and the printer should automatically be located. Sometimes, even though it shows up, it may not print. My advice is to add the printer again and make sure that you use what's called the DNS option. At that time, you can give it a name so you'll know that you have set it up and it's not just a thing that was found. And test it with a small file to make sure that it actually works. Occasionally, you will have to restart the computer, not always. So here is the printer setup, and you can see that it has found the printer, my Epson 400, my ancient Epson 400. Even though it found it, if I right-click and show the properties, it will tell me that the device is an implicit class, which is another way to say it won't work. And it tells me it'll be driverless, but that won't help me. So what I do is I will add it again. This is the simplest way. It will give me a list of all the printers it's found. And if I make sure the look on the network, it will find my printers. It finds it twice. It finds it once with the IP address, and it finds it once with the TCP nomenclature. I always look to see if it has the percent sign, which is the way it interprets a space. So if you pick that, you click on that, it will show up here, and it will give you only one option. Click something wrong. So it'll give you only one option here, and you know you're in the right. So you say, go ahead, do this, and it will go out and look and set things up, and everything is going to be fine. You put a name. Instead of Epson, I put added printer, just so that I know that this is one I added. You could give it any name you want. And then when I go look again, it shows me the added printer, and the check says it's the default. You can remove this if you don't need it anymore. And if I look at the printer, it now tells me that it's the IPP for IPP everywhere. And Mint is very good. I find Ubuntu gives me lots of problems. However, if you've had a new printer, you have a very good chance that it'll all just work right out of the box. But if not, Mint makes it a lot easier. Next thing we need is software. We'll go to the Linux Mint Software Manager. And we'll find that we'll get this page, and it's really in three sections. The top section is kind of the news of the day, new items or featured items. And then the second section is if you want to see it by a category, graphics, games, fonts. And then at the bottom, which is very long, you scroll down this very long section, is those that are popular, have a lot of downloads. At the top, you'll see that if you know the name of the application, you can search for it at the top. Now, the default packaging system, the Linux Mint, is Debian. And we call that's the legacy system. It's the standard legacy. They also have containers, and the containers they use are called flat packs. And if you have an option for a flat pack, it will show this little box. So as you can see to the right, some of the rectangles have little boxes in them. That means that they might have a legacy option, but they do have at least a flat pack option. So the way you do this is you click on whichever one you want. And for instance, here I've clicked on Bitwarden, which is a password manager. And it shows me this box. It would tell me, it'll give me a little picture of the screen if it has it. It will give me the details, how big is it in download, what version, and you can go to it has some hyperlinks to go to the home page if you want to check it out. The main thing is it has one button, install. You hit install and it does everything for you. That's all you have to do. Of course, you have to authenticate. You have to give your password in order. That's a security feature, so that malware couldn't come along and install something without having your privilege. If it has both the flat pack and the legacy options, it will put a little I button. If you click on that I button, it will tell you what the legacy system packages are and the flat pack packages, and will tell you why you might choose one or the other. This is also the place that if you want to get rid of it, you go to the Flatpak Manager, you find it, and you can remove it. When you come to it again, instead of having to add it, it will have a remove button, and that will remove it, and will remove it completely. It will do an auto remove and get rid of all of the associated programs that come with it. Now, if you've set it up, you may want to migrate items that you've had in a previous system. And this is called migration. Right? So you can add back apps that you used before. They're all free. You can copy and paste your data back. Hopefully you've got backup methods and you replace them. And however, if you had a previous Mint version and you go into a new Mint version or a new Mint device or instance, you can use Mint as a very special tool to make this easy. And so before you shut down your previous Mint system, you start this tool, and it has personal data backup now and software selection. That is the list of all the software you have added to back up. And you put them into an external storage media somewhere. Then after you start your new Mint system, you connect that storage media and you go to this application and you tell it to restore, and it'll go get all your personal data, and then it will actually find the software that you had before, and it will install it automatically. It may take a few minutes, and so it will just install it all, and your system will be back up a lot closer to what you had it before with all new selections. So if the software has been upgraded, a new version of that software, you will get the new versions. Now note that the default setting does not back up your personal settings, those hidden files in your home directory. Some people like to do this. I don't really recommend it, especially if it's not close related to which you have. So this is kind of one of the reasons you go through a lot of this setup. If you take the hidden settings, it will do a lot for you, but if there's a mistake, it can cause you some issues. So the summary is that Linux desktops have many configuration options. And if you do a fresh install and then you start a new system, it takes time to set the desktop to match the way you want to use the computer. Linux Mint tries to make things easy for us, and it has a welcome application to help new users get started so they don't miss important items. And of course, after you get it set up, then there's a lot more to get it the way you want to do it. So, John, that's the presentation.
A very good one. And I think people can already see how many options we have. And you still have part 2 to do in December with more information. See, Judy has questions, but
yes, I do.
always.
Yes, I do. But I also have, I was listening. I couldn't watch, but that's my kind of presentation. I could sit down at my computer, follow him exactly, and get it set up. I love that, Cal. I can tell that you teach these classes at the Cajun Clickers group. But anyway, I was busy contacting 9, count them, 9 people asking, why don't they have their first and last name? I have one person who isn't even registered. How did that guy get here? I have somebody whose name is owner. We don't ask you guys for much, but it would just be way cool if I didn't have to spend a presentation doing all the research between you guys who can't follow instructions, obviously, and when you registered to find out what your name is. The directions on the form that you complete are very easy. They're kindergarten level questions. And since May 2020, I still can't figure out why people can't follow instructions. I'm off my soapbox, John.
Okay.
This is Mary's question from Canada. The thing that often causes me problems with Linux on his PC, and more so on a Mac, is the internal sound system. Can you comment on how to deal with that? On my iMac, I never got the internal mic to work. My workaround is to use USB connected headset or USB webcam, which has a microphone. Still a lot of work to get it going. Cal, I hope you can help Murray.
I'm not sure because I never use the internal mic. I see maybe Tim or somebody can help me, but I always have an external mic. I found it took me a while to find one which has it had like two earphones and a mic that you could clip on your lapel. But I just mine has never worked Windows or Linux. I just don't like them. So, John, I have somebody else comment on this one. I can't.
Well, I think part of it comes down to if it was a brand new computer that ran Linux, was it running in Windows before converted to Linux? And I've found a lot of times that internal devices and laptops don't stick around very long. I'm dealing with right now that my laptop has a fingerprint reader, and I got really excited because Mint 22.2 has a new program that you can use that for not having to type in your password for sudo all the time. But Mint says it's not there. I've got to try to figure that out because I didn't, have that laptop before it became a Linux laptop to know if it even worked in there.
Well, Mint has a very good, if you click on the microphone or the music symbol in the system panel, it will give you an easy setup. I mean, it's really easy. I could demonstrate it, but it's really easy to tell which microphones you have and don't, and turn them off and on. Maybe I can do that. Want me to share my screen? Yeah.
Sure.
Let's see. How do I get this out the way? Down at the bottom, it just says sound settings.
Okay, you aren't sharing.
Say again?
You're not sharing.
Can you see it?
No, do not.
All right. Let me go to share. Share. Okay, so down here now you should be able to see it. Here are the sound setting. And you go to input. Here are the that I have, internal microphone, whatever. I'll just pick this, and it's got a volume control down here, and it's got one of the little input level things, which is really terrible, but it's got one. So this is Mint's approach. That's all there is to it. To me, it works every time.
Murray, have you tried that?
Can't answer you.
Can you hear me?
I can. I could. Murray, are you there?
He can't answer because he can't turn on his mic.
Oh, duh. Well, answer in the chat box.
I can ask him to unmute.
Or unmuting.
Well, I can only ask him. Hosts can't unmute people if they don't want to be unmuted.
Okay.
So I can ask him.
Let me ask another question.
Hello.
She's looking.
Hello.
Okay, here's another question. Zoom crashes if I go into the settings menu on my Mint desktop. Is it my hardware, Core 2 Duo, or
Ooh.
a general problem with Zoom on Mint?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Cal, we can hear you.
Oh, I pressed all these buttons and I have to reset all my audio.
Oh dear.
And your video's gone too.
My video's gone. Okay. Oh yeah.
There you go.
You know, in response to the question, Core Duo is kind of an old processor. Zoom might not work with a very old processor. When you go to the Zoom page, down at the bottom where you go to download, I think they have a link for system requirements. And you might check to compare. Because I haven't had any problem with um, Zoom and Linux. There are a few features that I complain to Zoom about that Windows has that sometimes Linux doesn't have. But in terms of it crashing, I would want to check the minimum requirements that Zoom has for using it on a Linux machine or even a Windows machine for that matter.
Oh, I use flat packs all the time now, and flat packs are updated frequently. And so that's my first advice to everybody is use a flat pack or Zoom.
Okay, he says Zoom works okay, just not settings. Is it time for Richard to buy a new computer?
So
Zoom
when it
works
comes to
okay.
settings, interesting. I still say, Zoom might work, but if it doesn't meet the full requirements, obviously clicking on settings is causing the problem. So there may be a hardware issue on that particular computer.
Well, as you can see, I have to unplug every time you do something that you have to plug and unplug and reselect on your computer. Okay, so it's not instantaneous if you're changing things. Uh, I don't know how to explain it, but you have to fiddle around. Is that the proper verb?
Okay, Cal from Canada is shaking his head yes to what you're saying. So I say buy a new computer. No, bad idea.
Well, I've got some pretty old computers that they all work.
Well,
So I
but
don't
this one
know.
doesn't seem to work. Maybe it doesn't like living in Australia. What can I tell you?
Okay? I'll need to report that just because you have an old computer, new computer,
Oh,
John said his Zoom crashed when he tried to look at settings, and he has a i7 fifth generation 10-year-old. And so it just might be the way the moon's shining. Tim, you got some advice on Zoom crashing and settings?
Offhand, uh, the simple answer that came up there was maybe buy a new computer. There is a problem.
Hmm.
The new stuff is cutting edge hardware. Software always is behind the hardware development. And so the end result is in Linux and some other areas as well, with other OSs, people are running into problems with the newest equipment not working like their older version did. I use a fair amount of older equipment and I don't have as many of the problems that some of the new hardware will run into.
Maybe that's why my mini PC really isn't working correctly. Thank you for that, Tim. That might solve my problem. Lester, and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Mute. There we go.
Yes.
Okay. I was clicking the wrong place. I believe it was Cal who mentioned that he had an intermittent or headset or microphone that wouldn't work. I had the same problem with my headset. It's an older HP laptop. It may be 10 years old. And sometimes I plug it, I can hear through the earphones just fine, but when I unplug it, occasionally the speakers will not work. So it's probably a switch, it's just there's a built-in switch with in the jack that probably is just not making good contact anymore. Certainly no reason to turn in my old computer for a new one though. I I have lots of old computers and they all work great. In fact, as far as hardware goes, that's the only problem I've had. So, I mean, they're amazingly reliable, especially considering
Well,
their complexity.
what what I've had lots of computers and the little 3.5 millimeter jack things fail frequently. So what I've done is I've got a headset and I got one with a USB adapter. It's a USB headset. So you stick the USB into the USB, you got the headset and the microphone, and it works wonderfully. And you don't get that static, and it's always a good connection. So I found that the technology of the little plug, if you keep plugging it in and out and in and out, wears out. Maybe I'm rough on it, but that's my experience.
Okay.
One thing that I've experienced is I've seen the pin plugs that have multiple rings on it. And I think that's designed for the new computers that only have one input jack. And when you have an old computer that has both a mic and a headset, that extra ring causes problems because it's not going to match up inside or something. So I agree with Cal. I do have a speaker that's still a pin plug because it was hanging around. If I get a new speaker for my table, I'm going to go with USB, and so I think trying to go with more modern technology is the answer.
Okay. Could Cal or John discuss Linux Mint versus Ubuntu for
Not today.
Okay, John Pierce. John will make a note that'll be included in another Linux presentation, okay?
Talked about it before, but we can mention it later.
Oh, we do forget. You need to do it 3 times before we all remember.
It's Chevy versus Pontiac.
Yep. Oh, okay, I got it. Cal from Canada, Cal with the K.
Find him.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay, good to go.
Did my hand show it was up?
No, you're on the list over here. I have people who, if I can see them, they're in line at the top of my monitor, and then the other ones are over on the participants list.
But he didn't have his hand raised, so he shouldn't have been on that list.
No, sometimes it picks up gesturing now, the new Zoom, and that may have happened. But what I wanted to elaborate on here is that the dongles used in the USB to convert a USB to the 3.5 mini jack, they're relatively inexpensive. And I've found it's a very good workaround for audio problems in both Linux and Windows. I think I picked up 2 for less than $15, and I've used them quite often. The other thing too is with Linux, there's 2 platforms for controlling audio. One is known as ALSA, Advanced Linux Sound Architecture, which is very in-depth. You have to be skilled using it and knowing how to apply the various switches. Then there's Pulse Audio, which is more popular and more favorable. It's easier to use. They don't work well together. You'll just get confused if you try to operate both. That's all I have.
Mint uses Pulse.
Okay.
And now it's got Pipewire if you really want to get fancy.
Oh,
and do it with both audio and video. But Mint itself, the little boxes I show for 99% of the people, does everything, and you don't have to know all the crazy stuff that you have to know with Pulse and ALSA and all of that.
Yeah, I had also on PC Linux, and I finally got to learn it, and then they took it away.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Donna Armitage. She's on my list over here on the right. So
Nope, she's not. I can't see her
really, she's
Yeah.
on mine.
with a hand raised.
No, she's got a 1 by it.
Oh, that meant
That's what I'm looking at. That's where I found Cal. That's where I found the other person that I asked.
yeah.
Okay, Rose, you're on.
I'll ask her to unmute.
Okay. I don't have a question, just 2 comments, I guess. First one is, as a Microsoft Apple person, back a number of months, John, I had asked about, changing my 2015 MacBook over to Linux rather than throwing the MacBook away. And I got the information. I put it off until your input. And that gave me enough courage to try to change it, which I did. And today, Cal, I really appreciate it as a very newbie of the pace with which you went. I turned it on. I was able to click the buttons right where you were at. I saw everything. So I now have it set up, and now maybe I'll use it and give it a little more testing. So these classes are great. And as the newbie for the Linux, thank you.
Outstanding, Rose. Love to hear that you took the step and worked along with him.
I did.
Carl, your turn, and then Tim. Unmute yourself, please, lower left-hand corner.
Yeah.
There you go. You're unmuted.
Oh, one of the things, we have a Linux group in our place, and after a while, the user gave up on Zoom, and we use Jitsi to communicate. And also, some of the people in the normal PC that are Linux people say it's not as good on Linux as it is on Windows for Zoom. So I don't think you could switch the world to Jitsi, though. That's a Google thing instead of Zoom. That's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Tim, you're it.
Okay, one further thing on audio that tripped my mind. I forgot about it earlier. The audio, you have to know both the device you are plugging in and the computer, what it has. Now, as an example, I have a headset here. It's a little one, but I have to use an adapter because the headset has an independent sound and microphone jack. But on some of my systems, they only have one combined jack. So this thing is a combiner. If you have a headset that has one combined plug, and your computer has 2 separate jacks, one for sound and one for mic, you're going to need a splitter. I have not looked into or tried out the USB, but that would be the next step to go to.
Going, gone. No more questions. Hey, Cal. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Looking forward to your part 2 in December. Over to you, John.
Okay. I want to thank Hal and wish him luck next month, and then we'll be waiting and waiting for our big New Year's almost presentation on more. I've already seen the schedule or the listing, and there's going to be a lot of neat things that he's going to cover then. And this will give people time to do what he's done now, and then they can report back. Excuse me.